This is Democracy Watch. Mark, we have a pretty chilling move by Donald Trump that really shows the extent to which we have crossed the Rubicon here. He has now targeted Harvard University as political retribution, directing the IRS to revoke their tax-exempt status. So where does this put us in terms of the precedent that it would set if the president is able to weaponize the IRS against his political opponents?
Well, so this is one of the most significant developments we have seen in recent weeks, because there is actually a federal criminal law that prohibits Donald Trump from doing what he has already done. Like the post on social media in which he said that kicked this off is itself evidence of a crime. It's like a crime scene, like Truth Social. Right. They could be putting like the yellow tape around that social media post, because in the aftermath of the Watergate scandal, Congress passed a law that makes it a criminal offense for the president of the United States and others, but specifically the president, to directly or indirectly tell the IRS to audit an individual or an organization. And that is what he is claiming to do here. So, I have been really, really concerned that the legacy media treats this like a political thing, like, oh, look at Donald Trump. He's pushing the boundaries. He's not pushing any boundaries. He jumped over the boundary. Like, the only thing between him right now and criminal enforcement is John Roberts and an immunity decision and Pam Bondi's unwillingness to enforce the law. But this is a blatantly illegal act.
And so that raises the question, which you were just alluding to, which is we have this Supreme Court ruling handed down that says that a president can commit criminal acts with impunity. And so what happens here when you have statute that clearly lays out the illegality of what Trump is doing with a Supreme Court precedent that says that he can do these things without any oversight?
Right. So this is the problem, right? This is the fundamental flaw in what the Supreme Court did. I think that maybe to give them the benefit of the doubt, they thought they were solving a retrospective problem.
Right.
They thought what they were doing was sparing the country going through the trauma of a federal criminal trial against a former president,
as opposed to giving him a permission structure to commit crimes moving forward.
Correct. Right. Because as always, people underestimate Donald Trump's willingness to flout the law. Like, I think that they probably assume that normal people, like if you came close to criminal jail once, you were indicted, you would live a clean life moving forward. Oh no, Donald Trump sees that as just this jumping off point for his next set of actions. And so the question you ask is the big one, which is, what do we do now? What do we do now that the Supreme Court has blessed this? We are only a little bit more than 100 days into this administration. Just to put that in perspective, we are 7% through Donald Trump's second term, and he is already flouting the law. Not just this one law, by the way. Like today, we're focused on a very egregious circumstance involving Harvard University, premier university in the country, an effort to intimidate them, an effort to punish them, an effort to potentially cripple them financially, and also to set an example for other universities. But this is not in isolation. It's not like this is the only thing that he's doing. He's gone after the law firms. He's gone after the media outlets. He has taken on authority over the federal government that he doesn't have. He has been found to have issued executive orders that violate the law. He's impinging on Congress's authority. He is trying to intimidate federal judges. And so, 7% through his administration, this is where we are. So I throw it back at you, Brian. What do we do? What do we do that he is already doing this now, and he is only going to grow bolder in the weeks and months and years ahead?
Well, I think the answer is clear in the sense that every single person, entity, company, university that he attacks has to know that if you capitulate, then you only embolden him to do it more, and to these other law firms, and to these other media companies, and to these other tech billionaires, to these other universities. And so that's the message for the Columbia universities, the Paul Weiss law firms, the ABC Newses and Paramounts who opt to capitulate, is you are just emboldening him. You are just offering him some blood in the water that only makes him want to go after the rest rest of your, look, you may look at them as colleagues, but really we're only as strong as everybody else in this ecosystem. If he starts to go after universities, you may think that that's just a competitor of yours, but really if any universities get targeted by him, it makes the whole space, it makes all of education weaker as the result of that. And so if that isn't a blinking red light for all of these potential victims of Donald Trump moving forward to stand their ground and fight back, look, I don't know what is.
Right. And so imagine if the next step after Donald Trump says he's going to go after Harvard and try to pull their tax exempt status or have the IRS do that. And there's a process about that we can discuss. But imagine if before we got to that process, right now, 1,000 universities all came out together and said, if you go after Harvard's, we will take in their tax exempt money and spend it for them.
Yeah.
So you're going to literally have to pull the tax exempt status of all 1,000 of us. And by the way, if you pull their federal funding, don't give it to us because we're not going to do it. We're not going to replace them. Yeah. You're going to have to pull all of our federal funding. Yeah. Donald Trump is being backed away by islands that only have penguins over trade. He is not a strong man. He is a very weak individual. And when he runs up against, look at what Mark Carney in Canada is doing. Mark Carney seems to have already backed Donald Trump down some. And when he runs up against strong individuals and collective action, then he'll back down.
Yeah, perfectly put. And I think that's, again, the message that we should be sending to every different entity, every different company, every different whatever it is in whatever space that Donald Trump is trying to attack. You get farther by collective action with your fellow whatever it is, your fellow universities, your fellow media outlets, whatever it may be. You get farther by joining together with these people to actually fight back than you will by some momentary victory you think you will have scored. Because, by the way, if you give an inch, he will continue to take more and more and more. And so for these law firms, for example, that think they got away with one, Trump owns you. He knows he owns you. And if you think that you got away by just offering up, $40 million in pro bono legal services, you've got another thing coming when he recognizes that he needs to squeeze a little bit more juice out of whatever, law firm it may be. Mark, I would ask for, as far as Trump is concerned, look, he knows that he can break the law with impunity because that was the Supreme Court precedent that was set as the result of his criminal case. And so if, for example, Harvard looks at this statute that was violated by Donald Trump and opts to bring him to court, can Trump say, I'm allowed to do this, and so even if we've proven that this was in violation of the law, I have no legal exposure here because the precedent that I'm operating under is that a president can do whatever he wants. And so there is no recourse so long as this is the interpretation of the law as it stands right now. And the only way that a president could ever be held accountable for violating the law moving forward is if moving forward the Supreme Court opts to change how they have interpreted this law.
Yeah. So look, Harvard can protect their tax exempt status because Harvard is entitled to due process. The IRS has to go through a process to revoke their tax exempt status. There is no basis for the IRS to do so. The tax exempt status of universities in this country is very well established in law. It's established in statutes. It's been affirmed by various court decisions. This is not a gray area. And so Harvard will be able to challenge any effort to revoke their tax status. Harvard will succeed in any effort to revoke their tax status. That doesn't mean that Donald Trump can be held accountable for violating the law. It just means Harvard will be protected. But the problem is, Brian, is that all of that takes time. Right. And all of that takes energy. And in the meantime, Donald Trump is, hoping to intimidate, maybe not Harvard, which has the premier brand and the largest endowment, but, maybe he starts to pick on some smaller colleges and smaller universities.
Well, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about because it feels like this is not a victimless crime. And even though he may not be successful in the end, the reality is that he is going to cause them. He's going to cause them harm by potentially sullying their reputation, preventing students in the future from wanting to associate themselves with a university that might be on the wrong side of the federal government. Of course, this is all going to take money to fight legally anyway. And so is he allowed to just move forward and wreak havoc, knowing that yes, he may, yes, there may be no recourse as far as he's concerned, but this all costs something for these universities, whether it's reputation or actual money.
Right. And it costs something for the media organizations. Disney's already paid. We've seen various of the media outlets bend a knee and pay. We're all sort of watching to see what happens with CBS, if they pay, and if so, how much. We have seen the law firms capitulate and pay, and it costs them. And the ones that have fought, the Perkins Coie's of the world, the Jenner and Blocks of the world, the Sussman Godfreys, the Wilmer Hales, they have fought, and it has cost them. I mean,
right.
they've been very
upfront. Is there recourse then? Because this is somebody who's able to just come in and swing a sledgehammer and cost everybody all this money. And normally, if he wasn't the president, you would be able to sue for that, for defamation, for damages, whatever it may be. But we obviously can't do that with the president of the United States, certainly one that has immunity. And so what is the recourse here that any of these institutions or entities have?
Look, I wish I could give you a good answer that people would accept and they'd like. The framers of the Constitution did not think that the recourse against a lawless president would come from the courts. I don't believe that they thought they were giving immunity. In fact, I'm confident they didn't think they were giving immunity. But they didn't think that would be the primary tool. They thought that the primary tool to enforce a lawless president would come from the legislative branch, which has a few powers. It has the power to impeach, convict, and remove. It also has the power of the purse. It could exact its own revenge against a recalcitrant president by cutting budgets for things he cares about. He could cut the budget for his White House staff. It could zero out the budget at the IRS to challenge the tax-exempt status of universities. We've seen that happen. We have seen Congress refuse to appropriate funds for enforcement where they feel like the enforcement is out of line with their priorities. So there are lots of tools that Congress would have. But of course, the Republicans who control Congress will never do anything to Donald Trump. They will never stand up to Donald Trump, which is why, as unpopular it is to say, what we need to do is elect more Democrats. And come 2026, everybody needs to set aside whatever criticisms they have of this Democrat or that Democrat, and they need to vote Democratic, because if there is a Democratic Congress, then you will have more tools available to rein in Donald Trump.
Right. And look, you have been beating this drum for quite a long time, especially in terms of the ways in which Donald Trump is abusing every lever of the government that he has to score himself political points. And highly recommend right now for anybody who's looking to support the invaluable work of Mark and his team, please sign up for Democracy Docket. It's a great way to support, again, Mark and his team, but also to read fearless independent journalism. And I use it on a daily basis and highly recommend that you do too. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Mark Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.